Good morning, everybody. You ready to go? Been eating candy out of the kids' buckets? Huh? I see a couple of guilty faces. Actually, in a way, what we're talking about today, there are two different topics, and the first one is kind of adding to our kids' buckets, and the second one is kind of taking away from our kids' buckets. So let's get into the issues, and I want to start out by talking a little bit about the Biogas Project, since that's been a subject of conversation the last couple of days. You all are very much aware that this administration and our community generally places a very high value on protecting the environment and on making our city cleaner and greener. Lincoln also embraces technology, and we embrace innovation. The Lincoln Biogas Project is a perfect example of city leadership that exemplifies both of these ideas. This project will convert waste gas generated at our wastewater treatment plant into fuel for our buses and other vehicles. These gases are produced as part of the treatment process. In some other communities, these gases are burned, increasing air pollution. In Lincoln, however, we look for better and more innovative ways because we value solutions that protect the environment and produce cleaner, greener Lincoln. For the past 25 years, our treatment plant has been using those waste gases to power generators that produce electricity. Now those generators need to be replaced, and our staff for several months has been examining what new and innovative options are now available. And they made sure their analysis included the cost benefit of replacing the generators versus other options for the waste gases. After studying many options, it is clear that the best return on investment is to construct a biogas conversion facility that will clean the waste gas for use as vehicle fuel. Revenues generated by the sale of that fuel are expected to pay back the construction costs, expected to pay back all of the construction costs in as little as 2 years. Thus, ongoing revenue will keep the costs down for ratepayers generally. It's a huge win for the environment and for Lincoln ratepayers. Two factors impact the timing of the project. First, the current generators are over 25 years old and are in need of replacement. Second, expediting the sale of the processed gas for vehicle fuel will shorten the process by nearly 12 weeks. That 12 weeks represents $200 to $1 million additional return dollars to Lincoln ratepayers. The engineering is clear, the economics is clear, and the benefits to the environment are clear. This project needs to move forward now. Instead, Councilman Christensen is suggesting that we delay the project to gather more information. He says he wants more process. But the public process has already been happening for a considerable period of time. And Councilman Christensen has been deeply involved. Moreover, he is mischaracterizing where we are in that process. Councilman Christensen's suggested actions do not benefit the environment, do not address needed technological upgrades, and do not benefit the ratepayers. His letter is full of inaccuracies about how city government actually works. First, The action that we've taken thus far is to approve a contract with HDR for $727,800. This is to finish the engineering and design of the facility. The request for contractors to bid on the actual construction hasn't even been written, and yet Councilman Christensen speaks as if we have already spent $8 million to build it. All of that construction process remains ahead and will be open to all qualified bidders. Second, Councilman Christensen is complaining that the City Council wasn't involved in the approval process. But the Council held a hearing on this item as part of the capital improvement program approved in 2016. Councilman Christensen attended that hearing, and his only request was that the city consider using a private company to operate the biogas project. It is flat out wrong to say the City Council has not been involved. Third, Councilman Christensen presumes that having a for-profit company operate the project is in the best interest of Lincoln ratepayers. During my time as mayor, we have engaged in dozens, if not hundreds, of public-private partnerships. We analyze each situation to determine what is best for the community. In the case of the biogas project, none of the information indicates that having a private company build and manage the facility would benefit ratepayers. City staff also held several meetings with those private management companies, one of which Councilman Christensen attended himself. Certainly, he would have heard what we heard. City management of the facility keeps the dollars generated in the pockets of the ratepayers, of the Lincoln ratepayers. Omaha and Fremont have already addressed this situation and decided the same thing, and are already pursuing the publicly owned and operated option. It's not a problem, of course, if Mr. Christensen has a different opinion on the issue than I and others may have. That sometimes comes with the job of being mayor and comes with the job of being on the city council. But it is a big problem when facts are not accurately represented. We owe it to the citizens of the community to do our homework and to present an accurate depiction of the issue being discussed. Doing any less is an abdication of our responsibilities as elected officials. We have done our homework, and to me, the facts are clear. The biogas project is a huge win for the environment and for the Lincoln ratepayers. The biogas project is an excellent example of the innovation that is helping Lincoln move forward. It's the kind of project that is making Lincoln a world-class city. But that growth only happens when we continue to make choices and investments that support it. With the biogas project, we are cutting red tape, doing what's best for the city, and bringing important revenues into the city operations. We need to address city growth in the same way. We need to do what's best for Lincoln's future and not impose arbitrary restrictions that diminish our ability to solve problems and hamper our city's growth. That would undermine all of the efforts that we have made together over the last 10 years and underscores a larger issue that I now want to switch over and talk about. I want to talk about keeping Lincoln strong and growing and growing. Several weeks ago, I had the opportunity to deliver another State of the City address as mayor of Lincoln, and I have to tell you, I am so proud to be a part of a community that's moving forward on so many fronts. Our successful, well-planned growth is the result of years of planning by many people, partnerships, and by investments in Lincoln. We refer to those efforts as the blueprint for progress, and this blueprint is improving safety, growing jobs, and enhancing the quality of life all across Lincoln. Our community blueprint for progress is a proven success. Lincoln's prosperity is evident by the national reputation for quality of life and economic opportunity. Lincoln's private and public sectors are working together as never before, and as a result, Lincoln is booming. We shouldn't take our success for granted. If we don't grow intentionally, we become stagnant, or worse, we decline. That truth is why our community has developed the public-private partnerships that have moved the city forward. Smart growth is the foundation of a successful city. Smart growth is how we create jobs and opportunities for the future. Smart growth is how we generate the funds to build and repair roads and to hire police officers and firefighters. And it's how we take care of our parks. Smart growth is what takes pressure off the property tax levy. In short, growth is the essential difference between a thriving community and a stagnating community. Unfortunately, some recent council choices are threatening our progress. These choices have a very real impact on every citizen's ability to get a good job and to live in a safe and well-kept neighborhood. Now we are reaching a critical juncture. We need to stop and consider the impact of stifling our continuing growth and ask ourselves, does this make sense, what's starting to happen here? What are the council choices that have put us in this situation? First, let's talk about budget authority. During my time in office, a short-sighted, anti-growth minority of the City Council has chosen to restrict the city's budget authority and impose a serious barrier to growth. Council members Lamb and Christensen have always voted against the additional 1% budget authority, and Councilman Camp has voted against it most of the time. This anti-growth position is hard to understand, as the vote on the additional authority is so routine that the Lancaster County Board has approved it every year since 2003. Most cities across Nebraska, including Omaha, routinely approve the 1%. That additional 1%, please understand, is the difference between reasonable growth and unacceptable stagnation. Second, consider the subject of annexations now before the City Council. Annexations that grow the city's tax base should not be contentious. They reduce the tax burden on current residents. It's an issue of fundamental fairness. These two actions taken together in the areas of zoning and the budget lid pose a tremendous risk to the success that Lincoln has enjoyed over the past decade. Placing an artificial cap on spending without recognizing the city's growth will curtail our ability to enhance economic opportunities and keep our city vibrant. Foregoing annexations allows properties that benefit from the economic growth of the city to avoid paying their fair share for the services from which they benefit. The risk of imposing these growth barriers are especially high because they negatively impact city services that matter to city residents. Let me give you some examples. Roads. Lincoln has increased our investment in roads by 58% since the year 2010, and the progress is evident. We are building more new roads and fixing more roads than ever before. We are identifying funding solutions for key growth roads like the South Beltway and Northwest 48th and the North Lincoln Exchange. That is the good news. The bad news is that the anti-growth faction of the council is destroying our ability to take care of those improved roads. That's because the 1% budget lid limits operational revenues severely, but not capital expenditures. Does it make sense to build and improve roads while in the same budget we arbitrarily restrict our ability to take care of them? Parks. Lincoln's park system is a key to our quality of life. Parks increase the value of our homes. They provide recreational opportunities for our kids. People want to live and work here in part because of our great park system. Parks are important to families of all income levels. Without the 1% budget authority, we will be able to build park shelters and basketball courts and replace playground equipment and plant trees, but again, we would not have the ability to take care of them. Again, I ask you, does this make any sense? Most of all, public safety. Police and fire are funded with property taxes and sales taxes, two of the revenues restricted by the refusal to support growth. If the anti-growth faction on the council continues to restrict our budget authority, we may be able to hold police and fire and 911 harmless from cuts for a long period of time, but these departments will not be able to grow to meet the public safety needs of the city as we steadily add more people and more square miles every year. This summer, we added 5 police officers and a line item in the budget to replace worn-out trucks and engines. We will not be able to continue adding police officers and firefighters if anti-growth council members continue to build barriers to growth. Does it really make sense to restrict the revenues that fund our most important public priority? Unfortunately, the anti-growth sentiment is expanding beyond the budget lid votes. Last Monday, a split council narrowly approved an annexation that should have moved forward without controversy. The northeast corner of South 40th and Yankee Hill Road is surrounded on 3 sides by the city, making it very efficient to serve with existing infrastructure. It is an area that offers tremendous potential for building our economy and creating jobs. When considering these types of annexations, fundamental fairness, again, is also at issue. These properties benefit from the city's growth, but do not pay city property taxes. When we annex areas like this, we help neighborhoods across the city by generating new tax revenues to help pay for current services. Does it make sense to slow down annexations that help us maintain what we have? We cannot continue to be a prosperous and successful city if we miss opportunities to build our economy and to grow our tax base. Over the past year, it has become increasingly clear that growth is not valued by some members of our council. Last year, Councilman Christensen introduced a resolution that would have required City Hall revenue increases, any City Hall revenue increase, to be approved by voters. While this might be politically popular, it was an ill-conceived and poorly drafted resolution that would have had absolutely disastrous consequences. Its passage would have threatened our city's bond rating and essentially shut down City Hall's efforts to contribute to the public-private partnerships that have been so strong in growing the community. Here's the bottom line. Our community commitment to growth determines how successfully we will meet the challenges of the future. These anti-growth positions threaten that future. Why do I bring this up today? Because it's the community in the end. It's the community that must insist that city leaders not veer from our proven path of success. City council members cannot say they are pro-growth when their actions stifle it. If they continue to vote against growth, they must take responsibility for the consequences. It's as simple as that. Voting against annexations, unwisely restraining our budget authority, imposing harsh restrictions on revenues, all strangle growth. A recent letter from a police officer in Des Moines really emphasizes in a small way why we can't ignore our responsibilities in keeping Lincoln growing and vibrant. The officer had come to town for a Garth Brooks concert. He thanked us by letter for 2 great days in our city, complimenting our police for their diligence and complimenting Lincoln on what a great community it was altogether. The officer from Des Moines is experiencing the Lincoln that we have all fought so hard for several years now to create. His experience is the result of a plan we put in place to keep our community strong and vibrant and growing. We can't expect people to feel strongly about a community that doesn't invest in itself, that doesn't believe in itself. That's why we have to keep Lincoln on the pro-growth path that we have set. Our community has both the partnerships and the plan to continue to grow our prosperity. Now we need leadership and the will to keep us on that path. That's my light after Halloween message, Nancy. There's no pile of candy that's going to keep things good. It's going to be some hard, serious look at things. Questions?
I have a couple of questions. One is, Mr. Christensen keeps talking about openness and, letting the public know what's going on. My understanding of the request for proposal process is that this isn't exactly, anybody could go watch it, but it's not really public. It doesn't take place in a public setting. It doesn't, advertise when it's going to meet. It's a small committee that looks at things and then makes a recommendation. So how public is that process?
Well, it depends. There are lots of ways of looking at it, Nancy, and the process has been very public. This particular facility was in our capital construction budget, right? So it went through an entire budget process.
But private companies had with the staff, those weren't in any kind of public setting. I couldn't have called and said, can I come to that meeting and take notes and write a story, right?
Well, I mean, there are always parts of all processes that are in a private setting. And we have been following the law carefully. We make available to people all the information about processes that they want to have. You can come in anytime and ask us about a particular process and we'll describe it to you. But once things go through the council, there are rules and laws that set forth how the administrative branch then operates with regard to all of our processes, and we follow those laws.
Council would not, no matter how you did this particular contract, the council would not have been involved in that contract, whether or not it had gone through the RFP process or whether you've done this more expedited process. They wouldn't
Well,
have voted on it.
our entire contract process doesn't go through the council.
I need for you to say that.
Wait, you need her to say what?
Donna, maybe you want to say it a
The
different way,
council
but
never voted on it. No matter how it went through, it wasn't a kind of contract the council would vote on.
Right. My name's Donna Garden. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works and Utilities. The RFP process is exactly what you said. We have a selection committee that is selected usually from staff. There may be outside people, the community members that join that group. And the selection process is done where the companies come in, give us a presentation, we rank them. It's a very stringent numeric process. But that is not shared with council, nor is it a public hearing type setting.
Okay. And the second question is, there seems to be a philosophy that there are things government shouldn't do. Government should take care of our sewer, our wastewater products, but they shouldn't get involved in the next phase, no matter whether it makes us money or doesn't make us money. What do you say to that philosophy, that dividing line?
well, I would say that to that philosophy, that there is no one philosophy. What we should do is what is the best deal for our ratepayers. It's as simple as that. And we think in this situation, we know that the better deal for the ratepayers is to do this ourselves. This operation is part of our wastewater facility operation. It's not something that different. It's an annex to that operation. It's going to save the ratepayers a lot of money over doing it any other way. And it just makes sense. I don't think you should take a theoretical or a philosophical approach one way or the other. I think you should take a pragmatic approach. And the pragmatic approach asks the question, how is this cheapest for the people who are paying for it?
The city thought that they were going to get a really good deal on the Bluffs Road project. We're converting methane to electricity, and I think it didn't turn out quite as well as you had hoped. Is that true? I didn't have a chance to look at
Can I
all
speak to
the
that
numbers.
for a moment?
You
Yeah,
can provide
I
better
can
comment.
certainly add some comments to that. That actually was implemented, and 2 years later, we became regulated under a permit, which negated some of those credits. We could no longer use the credit market. There's no boundary on this project that would have that back-end constraint on it. But we're still making electricity at the landfill. And
Right, we're
it's-
not making the money we thought. The city isn't making the money we thought we would make.
I don't know about that in terms of the original estimates on that. The other thing I want to mention is that facility also is proof that we have the operational expertise to run a similar facility at Teresa Street, because it's very similar. We're cleaning up the gas, we're compressing it, same thing we do at the landfill.
And then, do you have a contract with the gas company, Black Hills, to take this gas so that you can move it into the pipeline system and sell it and get the credits?
That will be still negotiated. We haven't settled on those contracts yet. And we've gotten some estimates on transportation costs and things like that. That was part of the final refinement, cost refinement that we just completed.
utilize the RFP. From what you said, it sounded like just an unnecessary process that would hold us back. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Well, when this goes out for construction, it will be bid out, and there will be competition for who receives the construction contract. If that's what you mean, that's what will happen. And the analysis with respect to the question of private versus public, that analysis has already been made internally. And at this moment in time, at least for myself, I don't see a reason to revisit that.
I think the issue is the contract on the engineering and design work.
Pardon me?
I think that the question and the issue has been expediting the contract for the design work, not going through the RFP process for the design work.
Well, that process was done in accordance with the law. The beginning of the process with HDR, I think, was done under departmental executive order, right?
Yeah, if I could speak
Under-
a moment on that.
Sure.
The two real big reasons why we asked Mayor to use that exemption was to, one, we have failing facilities out there. We want to make sure we don't lose the resource that we have, which is the gas that we produce, and we're generating electricity now. That equipment is cost more to maintain right now than we're making any electricity from. The other piece of it, of course, is that we do profit from this project. And the 12-week or 9 to 12-week process of doing an RFP selection, we would lose those revenues. So we'd like to expedite it as much as possible.
And had you done an RFP process, would you have just looked at the design work? You wouldn't have looked at the entire landscape of whether or not a private company should come in or not? Because that decision had already been made. I mean, you could design the RFP process either way.
You could. We did meet with a number of 3 other organizations that did the complete project, and there just didn't seem like the economics would ever support something of that nature. So I think in our opinion, the RFP process would have gone forward with the design.
We've also had some news recently about 2 police officers leaving the force, and I wondered if the mayor thought that the public was getting appropriate information about these issues.
Yeah, I didn't come today prepared to talk about that, and I haven't been briefed directly by police on it. So I don't really have anything useful to say this morning. Anything else?
Yeah, just, so, one thing that Christensen is saying is that this is a lot of money to spend for our taxpayers to take on that burden, but you're saying that it would pay itself off. So to the taxpayer who is looking at that $8 million number and saying that is a lot of money, what would you tell them so that they understand that what you're saying, that this is a good decision?
What would I tell them with respect to the risk being taken? I would tell them that I feel absolutely confident that this system that's being put into place will not only make Lincoln more environmentally friendly, but that it will pay for itself. And not only that, it will generate significant revenues going into the future that can be used by the water department to mitigate the costs of the whole system. So, in everything in life, there has to be a level of trust in the analysis that you do and the results that pertain. And I think if people look at everything we've done in the last 10 years and how well almost everything has turned out, that they should believe in our Public Works Department and what they're doing. You good to go? All right, thank you very much.